Forest Service, and the Ad Council.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's time for the Rundown with Rob Sanders.
Well, we're waiting.
And welcome into the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. I do not want to keep our guest waiting. I want to welcome into the program, of course, from goodbullhunting.com, Mr. Robert Behrens. He, of course, covers Texas A&M. Of course, South Carolina and Texas A&M square off on Saturday. Robert, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, man. Glad to be here.
All right, so let's get started with Texas A&M a little bit here. When you look back at this season, especially after the win after Alabama, you kind of scratch your head a little bit at the two Texas A&M losses this season. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I would say it's been a roller coaster for A&M fans this year because certainly A&M went into the season with really high expectations, being ranked in the top 10. And then even starting 3-0 looked pretty shaky. And then you had those back-to-back losses you mentioned against Arkansas and Mississippi State. And you had a lot of fans at that point who I think were talking about this was a lost season, already looking forward to 2022, just hoping we can become bowl eligible. And how quickly things have changed, because then you knock off Alabama at home, you take care of business against Missouri last week, and now the Aggies are coming in hosting South Carolina and looking to improve to 6-2, hoping to move up in the rankings and enter the bye week on a high note. So it's been all over the place for A&M, and it's, you know, you wonder which A&M team is going to show up, but you hope that maybe the past 2 weeks means that A&M has figured some things out and turned the corner.
Well, and let me ask you about that. What do you think was the Turner corner moment there with this team where they were able to make the big turn and beat Alabama?
I think the two things you can nail down the most as far as what made a big difference is offensive line play and quarterback play. And obviously the two of those affect one another greatly. But A&M came into the year already knowing they were going to be replacing 4 out of 5 offensive linemen from that 2020 season. And then on top of that, they've just had a slew of injuries on that line. So you've kind of been playing musical chairs the entire season, including having 2 true freshmen starting, one at center and one at tackle. And so that line was it was a mess for the first 4 or 5 games. And it seems like against Alabama, they finally, I don't know if it was experience or just finding the right combination of guys, but they found something that worked. So that line was able to give Zach Calzada time in the pocket, and Calzada proved that when given time, he actually could make some accurate throws and make some decent plays, because that was, as much as he struggled early on coming in as the starter, a lot of that was because he was just under constant duress, and he's not a super mobile guy. He's not a guy who is great at making plays when the play breaks down, but when he's given time, he's got the arm, he's got the talent. And I think that's what we have finally seen out of A&M, especially against Alabama.
Right, let me ask you just your opinion of the fan base before that Alabama matchup. Texas A&M was like a 17-point underdog to Alabama. Were there folks that were kind of turning just a little bit on Jimbo Fisher and saying, you know what, these 2 losses here, if they would have gotten hammered by Alabama, do you think that people would have been saying, maybe we need to look somewhere else?
I think as far as actually being on the hot seat, I don't think Jimbo was going anywhere. As everyone knows, he just signed a big, hefty extension back in August. So I think the sheer amount of that buyout money, like literally A&M would have owed him, I think, $90 million. So that alone meant he wasn't actually going anywhere. But I think you're right that there were people that were not upset with the direction of the program, because there were people thinking that it felt like the Kevin Sumlin era all over again, just kind of same song, different verse. And it's hard to remember such a drastic turnaround, not only in the fans' perspective of a program, but also I think just national perspective, because you went from people kind of dismissing this team and thinking it's the same old A&M of underachieving when a lot was expected of them, to now they've taken down Bama just like Jimbo Fisher said he was going to do when Nick Saban was there. And, while the team already has 2 losses, so maybe as far as SEC titles or playoff contention this year, that may not be realistic. With the way they're playing the past 2 weeks and the way they're recruiting and everything else that Jimbo has done, I think the sky is still the limit for this program, which did not feel that way this time 2 weeks ago.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the matchup with South Carolina. When I look at the rushing attack that A&M has, do you think that's going to be kind of the MO, come in and try to control the game a little bit with that, or are they going to ride the arm of Calzada?
Well, A&M has really shown this year they are a lot more pass heavy than they've been in previous years. You looked at, especially in 2018 and 2020, those were super run-heavy attack. And a lot of that, I think, plays into having a great offensive line you can lean on for that attack. But this year, I mean, they've been throwing it a lot more than they have in previous seasons. And so while A&M has 2 great running backs in Isaiah Spiller and Devon Achane, and they're certainly going to utilize those guys, I think it's going to be a mix of both. You're going to see them get their carries, but you're also going to see those guys going out and catching passes. You're going to see still the ball thrown to tight ends, Jalen Weidermeyer, and still trying to get it to wide receivers as well. So Jimbo really has looked like he wants to have a more balanced attack this season. And it's kind of been game to game, just whatever is working that week tends to be what they hone in on.
Texas A&M joins the SEC, and then they end up becoming South Carolina's cross conference rival. They play for the bottom trophy every season. Do the A&M fans care about that at all? I mean, they've never lost to South Carolina, but do they see it as an actual rivalry, or is it just, oh great, it's South Carolina?
I would say a lot of A&M fans refer to it as a bitter rivalry, mostly as a joke. I mean, because like you said, even though it's a game that gets played every year, even though there is a trophy on the line, these 2 teams had never played each other until 2014, and it has been a one-sided affair so far, with A&M winning the first 7 games. So I think it's hard to generate a lot of hate there. And since 2014 to now, neither team has been particularly good. Even though A&M has had the upper hand, it's not like A&M has been having SEC West titles on the line or anything whenever we're playing South Carolina. So certainly I think both teams, there's a general feeling of apathy among the fan bases that, but as soon as one of us is really good, or as soon as South Carolina pulls off an upset, that may change.
Robert Behrens from goodbullhunting.com joins us here on the rundown. Hey man, once again, I appreciate you making some time out for us, as the Gamecocks will be heading down to Kyle Field this weekend, man. Tell folks where they can find your stuff, and you guys do some great work over there at goodbullhunting.com.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so Good Bull Hunting is actually the SB Nation team site for Texas A&M. So you can find us, just like you said, at goodbullhunting.com. Or for myself personally, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is RCB05, or you can just search me at Robert Behrens.
All right, Robert, man. Thanks for joining us on the rundown, man. You have a great day.
Yeah, man. You too.
Right, there we go. Of course, Robert Behrens from goodbullhunting.com joining us today to preview the South Carolina Texas A&M matchup. I am with him on one front here. I don't think that either fan base really cares and thinks that this is like a big, huge rivalry. And it's not because South Carolina hasn't won. I just think when you force a rivalry together, where you put these teams together and they have to play each other, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have a rivalry. And by the way, South Carolina's got to win too. So there's that too. 803-978-1832. You get the vibe with this Texas A&M team that, yeah, they beat Alabama. If you watch the Mizzou game, I know Mizzou is not very good, but they rolled through that game with relative ease. And Now they're getting geared up for South Carolina, and they have a potential to be a team, A&M does, that could, in theory, be a big-time spoiler. What I mean by that is that after South Carolina, they get a bye week, and then they've got Auburn, and they've got Ole Miss, followed by Prairie View and LSU. But those first 2 games in November can shape the SEC West. There are folks that are looking at the game with Auburn, and Auburn looking at it from a perspective of, hey, they can beat Alabama. They may be able to do some things, but if Ole Miss wins out, and there's just so many things that can happen in the West, and Texas A&M could be a big-time spoiler there in the West after that matchup with South Carolina. Now, they could overlook South Carolina. That happens. And I know folks are like, yeah, Rob, but South Carolina is not really good right now. And they're not. They almost lost to Vanderbilt last weekend. I'm not going to sit here and just, pump the sunshine, as some folks would say. But if you overlook any team, they can come back and bite you. Remember, Texas A&M was a 17-point underdog to Alabama. But I think that this season's going to be looked back upon as the what-if season for A&M. What I mean by that is you're good enough to beat Alabama, but you're not good enough to beat Arkansas. You're not good enough to beat Mississippi State. There's that. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join me here on the Rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400, of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I wanted to bring up one other thing really quickly here. If you go and you pull up the latest 247 Sports recruiting rankings, if you just pull up the SEC teams, number 1 is Alabama, number 2 is Georgia. That's pretty much the way that it normally is. Number 3 is Texas A&M. Number 4 is LSU. Nothing to see here. This is what you generally would see pretty much in any season. You may have Georgia move up to 1 and Alabama to 2 and what have you. But at number 5, yesterday, Mizzou picked up an in-state commitment from Luther Burden, who is the number 1 player in Illinois. I say in-state, but it's pretty much he's in St. Louis, basically. And he's basically staying home to go to school. The number 2 wide receiver in the country and ranked number 5 player overall. So the 5th best player in the country has decided, hey, I'm going to go to Mizzou and play football. Now, wrap your head around that for a second. This is a young man that turned down Georgia and Alabama. Now, bear in mind, they're not going to miss him at Georgia or Alabama because they'll have 4 or 5 other 5-star guys that are going to make their way onto the field for them. But for Mizzou, this is a huge deal. And right now, in the 247 Sports rankings, they are 5th in the SEC. Wrap your head around that for just a moment. They're ahead of the Florida Gators. Yes, they're ahead of Kentucky, Arkansas, Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, who's doing his thing. This is for the 2022 class, by the way. And ahead of Tennessee, which Josh Heupel doing some good stuff there, but not quite hitting the recruiting trail as hard as Eli Drinkowitz is up at Mizzou. I thought that was just very interesting because I think there's a section of people that look at Mizzou and they're like, you know what? Mizzou really doesn't belong in the SEC. And I think a lot of it is just geographical things. Okay. They're way up here and Texas A&M's the same thing. And they were basically brought in to put the SEC into those television markets. I get all of that. But at one point, not too terribly long ago, Mizzou was a viable football program. They won 2 SEC East titles. So the idea that it can't be done at Mizzou is kind of silly. Now, I say that on this front, though. Mizzou is god awful this year. And you wonder if Eli Drinkowitz is going to be able to keep the momentum going, because you can make an argument that they are going to lose out. But as of right now, they have the 5th best recruiting class in the SEC, and they're ahead of Florida. I didn't think at any point that I would be saying, you know what? That's happening. Florida, by the way, they've had some folks that have transferred out. I don't know what the hell's going on with Florida. I mean, it's guys coming in, guys leaving, and that happens at a lot of programs. Clemson's got guys leaving their program too. But it just seems like right now, Florida is like an airport. People are coming and people are going. And I don't really think stability when I think of the Florida Gators. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Steve online says Luther don't want to block, receivers block at Georgia. Yeah, you can put that out there. And there's a lot of folks, well, he didn't want to work hard. He didn't want to come to here. And if Georgia picked this guy up yesterday, the Georgia fans would have been loving it. If Alabama picked him up, the Alabama fans would have been loving it for about a half a second. I don't know how good the guy's going to be. I don't really get into the whole recruiting thing. I look at the class, and as far as where your class ranks, I don't really look at each player. I don't. But when you do see this, the teams that are in the top half of the top 25 at the end of the year, they generally have top recruiting classes consistently over time. And it looks like Mizzou may be putting a dent into it. I think right now their class is ranked number 14th in the country. Billy says it's one player, Rob. Stop it. It's not just one player, man. The Mizzou class, if you look at it, they've got, in addition to that 1 5-star, they've got 6 4-stars, which is big for that program. So he's putting together a decent class at Mizzou, and it's something that hasn't really been there. So we'll see how that works out for the folks up in Como. More of the rundown in just a moment. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Billy with the win. Yeah, I think if Cincinnati wins out, they're going to go to the playoffs, and then they're going to get blown out by whoever they play. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio, 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you would like to join us here on the Rundown. If you want to talk about what our guest said about the South Carolina matchup with Texas A&M, I don't know what to expect from South Carolina. I really don't. The more and more I look at it, the more and more I'm like, you know what? Texas A&M might roll them. I mean, that might happen. South Carolina may find themselves with old man Nolan at quarterback. I don't know. It's one of those weird games. It really is. But we can talk about that. We can also talk about, and we might get into this a little bit tomorrow, the fact that Clemson is playing a Pittsburgh team that could blow them out. I know people like Clemson fans really don't want to hear that, but Clemson could go up and get a talking to up there and at Heinz Field. We'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. By the way, we're a couple of weeks away from the college football playoff putting out their initial rankings. And I wanted to throw something out there. Cincinnati is a team that is undefeated on the season. Cincinnati is a team that they scheduled 2 Power 5 opponents in Indiana and Notre Dame. They went on the road back-to-back weeks and won those 2 games. And they blew out Central Florida this past weekend, putting up 56 points on Gus Malzahn. Here's the thing. The rest of their schedule is, can we use the term light? They've got Navy this weekend. They're favored by, I think, 27 points. Tulane, who is not very good. Tulsa, South Florida, who is really bad. SMU is ranked in the top 25 right now, but I don't know how far that's going to go. And they finished the season at ECU. Here's the thing. If they win out and win the AAC title, they are going to go to the college football playoff. And you know what? You can make an argument that they deserve to be there. Yes, they went through their schedule, and yes, they knocked everybody off. I get that. But in the end, is that what's really good for college football? Because I can guarantee you, whoever it is that they play, that they square up and they end up matched up with in the college football playoff, let's say that it stands like it is right now and they're the number 2 seed, okay? And just for the sake of, let's make sure that we give you the exact rankings here. I want to make sure that I'm right. But I'm trying to find, man, I don't have my stuff. Oh, there it goes. So currently they're ranked number 2 in the country, which puts them playing Oklahoma, because you have the 2-3 matchup, and you would have, in theory, UGA and Alabama playing if that's the way that it's set up. Of the 3 teams that are in the top 4 with them, I think that Cincinnati loses by at least 10 points to all of them. So, in theory, you're going to have a bye to the college football final as long as you show up and do what you're supposed to do. I don't think that that's really good for college football. I really don't. Now, I think that the way to fix it, there are several ways that you can look at it, but you don't have the idea in your head that there's going to be a Cinderella type thing where someone's going to actually make the final that is out of one of these G5 schools. I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. It's not like basketball. So I think the way to fix it, and that people have said this before, the G5 should have their own championship. Can you imagine the G5s having their own set up where they had basically their Final Four teams? It doesn't make it any less or a cheaper national title. It's just you're putting better football on the field. Because if you look at the G5s, Cincinnati would be the first one. After that, your next G5 would be Coastal Carolina. And then you would have SMU, and then I guess San Diego State. That would be your Final Four there. I don't think that's that bad. I really don't. Put those four out there and let them have their own set of playoffs. I think that would be great. But having a college football playoff with a G5 team in it, I just don't see it. If you watch the Georgia game last year where they played Cincinnati, and I know people are going to say, well, Cincinnati hung with Georgia, Rob. You really think Georgia wanted to be there? I mean, we use that excuse a lot, but in reality, do you think that the Georgia Bulldogs, after what had happened to them that season where they were favored to win the East, had the best team in the East, basically shot themselves in the foot, and they'll give you the excuse lineup. I understand that. The reality is they should have won the East. They should have been playing Alabama in the SEC championship game. I think most Georgia fans will admit that. And losing to Florida last year was kind of an embarrassment because they were the better team, even though it didn't show up on the field. But if I remember correctly, Georgia was playing with like their second and third string offensive line against Cincinnati, whereas it was Cincinnati's Super Bowl, and everybody pretty much played. People were opting out for Georgia. It was a mess. And the fact that Georgia picked up that win says a lot. Not necessarily about Georgia, but about Cincinnati, and I believe their ability to compete. So I'm in for a college football playoff with 4 teams from the Power 5, 4 teams from the G5, and then go from there. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial. If you'd like to join us here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Billy online says your SEC champ, Big Ten champ, Cincy, and Big 12 champ in the CFP. Book it. That could be fair. I know people don't want to hear this too, but Wake Forest is undefeated. Wait, what? Yeah, Wake Forest is undefeated. If Wake Forest finishes the season a perfect 12-0 and wins the ACC title, are you going to say Wake Forest doesn't belong there? Wonder how that works out. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you want to join us here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world on the iHeartRadio app, you're free to check us out there. And, of course, you can follow the stream. Several folks putting some stuff there. 803-978-1832. Billy says the ACC will not get a team in the CFP this year. You're absolutely right. And if you're an SEC apologist that we talked about, that bodes well for you because the ACC is the only other team that's pretty much been winning national titles during the CFP era that's not from the SEC. So if you're one of the SEC apologist folks, you're going to be like, man, the ACC's out. One of our teams has a really good chance of winning it. So there's that. Let's go out to the phones. Welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I've got a question for you. I'll get off here and listen to your response.
Sure.
After all the mustard and the golf balls and all the debris is hit, everybody's wanting to know who would bring such items to a ballpark or a stadium. Did Mike Leach pop into your mind automatically? There's no telling what he's got on his person at any given moment.
You know, that's a very fair statement. What would Mike Leach have on him? I don't know if Mike Leach would throw anything, but you're right. He may have a slew of things on him. You're right about that.
And that was my question for you. What you thought Mike Leach might have on him at any given moment. And I'll get off here and listen to what you got to say.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, Tennessee's still taking some heat for what happened up in Knoxville over the weekend. I know that the optics on that look like, man, this is terrible. But the reality is that I've been to stadiums where people have thrown things. It's not just Tennessee fans. People throw things. That's part of it. You can make an argument that beer being sold at the stadiums may ramp some of that up. I can definitely get into that. But on the other hand, all fans can be ridiculous. And if there were, what? Let's say there were 400 bottles of water thrown at Tennessee that day, just a roundabout number. 400 bottles of water, 3 golf balls, and a bottle of mustard. There were, 100,000 people there? The percentage shows that the majority of the fans don't feel that way. And you know what? There are a lot of fans that were upset. So there's that. But what Mike Leach has on him, I don't know. Probably the one thing I'll remember about Mike Leach was last season they beat somebody in a bowl game. His players are fighting on the field. Mike Leach is up in the stands in the middle of the pandemic, taking selfies with people while his team's fighting a no-name team that they beat. Was it Tulsa? I don't remember. 803-978-1832. Biscuit with a good comment. It's a conspiracy. The against Tennessee, Vols don't drink water. That's sad. What is it? Mountain Dew and Red Bull. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Quick break. We'll have more for you when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Brandon, you need to stop that. I've been at Williams-Brice where Gamecock fans have thrown water bottles. So stop with the nonsense. That's harsh, Jay. So for last week's Vanderbilt game, I believe there were more people at the fair across the street than there were at the actual game. Yeah, okay, go Bucks. So I went to the Outback Bowl when South Carolina played Ohio State. I think it was in what? It was one of the Lou Holtz years. And a couple of my friends were friends with a couple of Ohio State fans. And Michigan was playing in a bowl game down in Orlando or whatever. We went out the night before. Our 2 Ohio State friends saw a car with Michigan, the Michigan logo on it. They put the Michigan sticker on the side of it or whatever. And sure enough, our Ohio State friends decided to piss on those cars, which actually happened. 2:00 in the morning, they're out there peeing on the Michigan logo. I've not seen that yet, Johnny Red Dot. I will check it out. You might be right, Go Bucks. I don't know. I just remember that I'm like, what are you guys doing? We got to go pee on these cars. Why? They got Michigan logos on them. Are you serious? Yep. That was also the night that I was at the bar and this woman kept buying me drinks. And it was so funny because she kept buying me drinks. And at the end of the night, she's like, yeah, he's going home with me. And my friends are like, no. And then they said, dude, she weighs more than your car. It's time to get out of here. Sometimes friends are good. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Let's go out to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Hey, this is the Biscuit PG-13. How are you?
Hey, how are you, sir? I appreciate you not going overboard yesterday.
Well, I'm gonna make it 2 days in a row. I was calling to defend my friends, because I take exception to what you were saying about the South Carolina football program earlier, because you do realize that they're only 50 plays away from being first in the SEC East.
Okay. Well, I apologize. I don't think I ripped South Carolina too bad. I just think that they're rebuilding, but that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe. I think you could couple 50 plays together and give them the lead, a few pick sixes, a few 80-yard touchdown passes, a few kick returns, probably in there.
Yeah, we'll have to see
I
how
guess
that
just
works
because it's a Texas A&M day,
Mhm.
I was calling in to tell you a quick little stupid story I have. So I moved to Dallas, Texas when I was going into second grade, and my second grade class was using this new derogatory term that I thought was a curse word, and it was Aggie. And so I spent the first 6 months of my living in Texas using Aggie like it was like an F-bomb, like I was some cool kid, only to realize when my best friend told me that his dad was an Aggie and explained to me what it was. But yeah,
Wow.
It's the way it is in Texas.
Everything's bigger in Texas, right?
It's a great state. It's a great place to live. Yeah, they actually, it's an interesting place because football there is on Saturday and Sunday. There's not a lot of cities that are like that if you think about it. That state, is passionate about their football all the way around. So, they have the Cowboys and obviously Texas and Texas A&M, but they're pretty football passionate all around.
I refer to Texas A&M as Wish Texas. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's that?
I refer to Texas A&M as Wish Texas. They're like a wish list Texas. Like if you order the wish.com, that's what Texas A&M is. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, I'm not even going to troll anymore today. So everybody is saying now that since Alabama lost their game by 3 points, that it's Georgia and everyone else. And I'm a big Georgia fan, but I don't buy into that really, because the way I look at it is this: if it's you and everyone else in the country, you've got to at least be 7 to 10 point favorites over everyone else on a neutral side. Right. And I think right now, if Georgia played Alabama, they might be a 2.5 point favorite, something like that. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
At a neutral site, you're probably right, but I think the rest of Georgia's schedule, though, Georgia's probably going to be a 7 to 10 point favorite. I mean, do you see anyone else on the schedule that you look at and you're like, that's going to be a challenge? I don't think so.
Well, yeah, the SEC championship.
Yeah, but that's not on the schedule yet. I'm talking about on the schedule as of right now.
No, right. And I'm not trying to look that far ahead.
Yeah.
But when you're saying it's Georgia versus everyone else, you're saying people are saying that through the end of the season, like cumulatively, not just the regular season, but all the way through.
Right. Yeah. I think
there's
that's
a lot of football to be played.
There is a lot of football to be played. We're only halfway through the season, and things can happen. I mean, I don't think anybody really thought that at this point we'd be talking about Texas A&M with 2 losses, and one of the 2 losses wasn't to Alabama, or the fact that Alabama would have a loss and that Florida would take them to the limit. I don't think anybody thought that at this juncture. I really don't.
Yeah, and I really think that even in the Big Ten, especially the East, you could basically put those teams in a bag, shuffle them up, and just pull one out like a lottery ball. I think there's going to be a lot more losses there than people think. I don't think everyone's coming out unscathed.
I think Go Bucks was telling me yesterday in the chat room that the East was, Ohio State was just going to run through it. So we'll see how that works out.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your show and see if some of my favorites call in. But I'll probably talk to you tomorrow.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, Biscuit, for joining the program. All right.
Talk to you later, Rob.
Yeah, man.
Oh, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
You haven't given me my coach list yet.
Oh, I'm still writing it. I'm making sure I'm putting them in order because here's the thing.
You're trying to figure out how you can manufacture a top 25 coaching list without putting Kirby Smart in it and trying to save face and sound intelligent.
Here's the thing. And I think
that's why it's taking so long.
No, here's the thing. The reason that I'm putting it together and I'm making sure that I skillfully put it together is twofold. One, you can make an argument that Kirby Smart is a top 25 coach. He's just not one of the top 25 coaches I would want. That's what people don't understand. Look, if you're putting together a list, he should be on it. But I just don't like the way he runs his program, and that's just me. You can make an argument I don't
So
like
if Dabo
winning.
Sweeney left today, and they said that Kirby Smart was coming over, you'd be disappointed?
I don't like the way that he runs his program. I mean, there's been things that he's done that have not been exactly like wow. You have to agree with that, right?
Yeah, his handling of quarterbacks periodically hasn't been great. But
You can make an argument he doesn't make second half adjustments.
Together, and I've seen some tremendous game plans that he's put together in certain games, and he's just absolutely stifled teams, in particular this year.
And and I tell you what, I have if he can get over the hump this year, because I think he's got the best team in the country. I mean, I'll give him the respect that he deserves. But as far as wanting him to coach at my program, it's just not what I want, man. That's all.
You don't want the number one ranked recruiting class every year?
He doesn't have the number one.
To me,
Look,
50 to 60% of college coaching is recruiting.
I understand that, but if you have the number one ranked recruiting class, it's all about developing them and getting them to a point where they win. That's the whole end of it.
But here's the deal. No, but statistically speaking, in order to win a national championship, the only teams that actually have a chance are the ones that have 60 to 75% of their teams are blue chips.
That's true.
That's very few. That's very few in the country. I don't know if I think if Clemson does eclipse that. I think, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, it's very few. Basically, statistically speaking, it is who you have first.
Right.
If you don't have that, you have no chance, and I don't care how good a coach you are. I think Kirk Ferentz is one of the best coaches in the country.
Yeah, but
he's not winning championships.
Well, because he doesn't get the recruits that Kirby Smart does.
Exactly.
So there you go with that.
That's my point. He doesn't get the recruits.
But to me, it's not just about recruiting, and that's the big thing.
No, it's not just about recruiting, but a big piece of it is. A huge piece of it is in college.
You have made your point, sir. And I tell you what, if I ever make a tube top that's bedazzled with Kirby Smart's face on it, I'll make sure you get it.
I don't want to see you start plugging in like high school coaches and plugging them in there in front of Kirby or anything to try to find some way that he's not in there. Look,
and let me make sure that I put this out there. I think that he is a top 25 coach, but he's not in my top 25. That's all. That's all there is to it.
So let me ask you this one more question.
Sure.
If you were at Clemson right now, if you were your coach, and you obviously right now Clemson's a top 10, top 5 brand, right? top 5 program.
Right.
Would you fire him?
No, I'm not going to fire him. I'm not saying that he should be fired. He gets things done. I just think that you have to admit, with the recruiting classes that he's had that you've talked about, that he should have at least one national title. I'm serious. Ed Orgeron is a complete buffoon. Ed Orgeron is a complete buffoon. Okay, the recruiting classes that he had at LSU weren't as good as what Georgia has, and he won a national title.
Which is to Kirby's credit, by the way.
Fair enough.
Which is to his credit. So let me ask you this.
Sure.
So if our safety in the national championship in 2017, if our safety had played cover 3 instead of cover 2 and covered the receiver like he was supposed to, if he had recovered Devontae the way he was supposed to, and that touchdown never happened and Georgia won a national championship, Kirby's a great coach?
I don't think he's a great coach, but he's definitely a top 10 coach. I mean, you win.
So based on the fact that his safety didn't make a play, Kirby is now relegated to outside the top 25?
Oh goodness, he's outside of my top 25. If we're putting together an actual analytical list, he should be in the top 25. But I'm talking about my top 25, what I like. That's all. He's a great coach, but I just wouldn't want him there. That's all.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a great coach, and any program that gets him is getting a great coach, but he has that monkey on his back of he has to win.
What did you just say?
I said
anyone who gets him is getting a what?
A great coach. Yes, but he's not a coach that I want. I don't understand why people are so upset about that. I just don't think that if I were picking, that's not where I would go. That's all. If I were an AD, I would go somewhere else.
That's what this one is all about debating stuff like that. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, and I've caught hatred from Georgia fans over it, and it's nothing personal against him. It's just that I don't like the way that he's done some things, so I would look somewhere else. That's all. He's a great coach.
Okay.
He's done good stuff. If it's all about recruiting, man, he's right there. But as far as developing quarterbacks and some of the stuff that he said and the way he handled the JT Daniels stuff last season, just was like, ugh, just don't like it. And that's just me.
He doesn't just do recruiting, man. It's the way you when you're the head coach of a big program, you're the CEO, and it's the way you manage.
But
manage a group,
managing the message that comes out, and
you're handling a million things.
That's exactly right. You are the head statesman for the program. I agree with you on that.
Yes.
All right, man. I got to go to a break, but good stuff.
Okay. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Biscuit. All right. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you on the rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I do like vanilla ice cream. No, I don't. Look, I think that if Georgia fans are completely honest, you don't think that he's underachieved? Seriously. With the talent that he's had there, he should have won at least one national title. At least one. Oh, Caden, throwing out things that make no sense. Vanilla scented candles. And that's fair, go Bucks. He is a great coach. He's just not a coach that I want. I think that's the thing. People get so upset. It's just somebody I wouldn't want. You can be great, and I don't want anything to do with you. That's all. Recruiting is important, but you also have to develop players. You also have to get them all going the same direction and manage the egos and everything else. Oh goodness. All right, so let's evaluate what Caden said. You've got Dabo Sweeney's two sons are not taking up scholarships, but they're holders. Does anybody go to school to be a holder? Do they have 5-star holders on the 247 Sports Composite? And by the way, the Venables was a 4-star prospect. You're being silly, sir. You were being really silly there, Caden. Who's good? What are you talking about? Welcome back to the Rundown. Final segment here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, I am filling in for Teddy Hefner from 11 to noon. So I'll have like 2 hours of radio tomorrow. I normally only do one, but tomorrow there will be 2 hours of the Rundown. Actually, it's not the Rundown. It'll be Talking Sports with the C team. That's what I'm calling it tomorrow. Is I will be filling in for Teddy Hefner. who's forgotten more about sports talk radio than I will ever learn. But he asked me to fill in for him tomorrow from 11 to noon. So we'll have a show tomorrow from 11 to noon, and then we'll do a show from 3 to 4. So there you go with that. 2 hours of Rob on the radio tomorrow, 11 to noon and 3 to 4 right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Be sure to check us out tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to have ready. I know I normally do my picks on Friday, but I can't do my picks in 2 shows. Just saying. So I'll have to come up with something else. I'm going to charge Teddy Hefner a heck of a lot of money for this. I mean, there's like a huge retainer fee for this. I'm going to have to get Teddy Hefner on that. Me filling in for him tomorrow. Now, Teddy's a great guy and always gives me the mentorship that I need here when I need it. He'll tell me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, etc. So love some Teddy Hefner. Of course, he's been doing sports talk forever. But I'll be filling in tomorrow, so be sure to check me out tomorrow from 11 to noon. Look forward to that. And tomorrow is Show Me Friday. Remember that. Friday's on the rundown. Our Show Me Friday, Tell Me Friday. I want to know why your team is winning or why you think your team can win. And we're going to have picks against the spread because I know folks like to gamble. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I wanted to get into this really quick here. Nick Rolovich is out at Washington State, and I don't want to get into the whole vaccine thing because people feel that way about it or feel one way about it, and you're not going to change people's minds. But on the other front, this is a big deal because now you have an issue with several Power 5 jobs that we know are open. LSU is going to be open. Southern Cal is open. And now you've got Washington State. Now, they're not on the realm of LSU and Southern Cal, but it is a Power 5 job. And this could cause a ripple around the country. Some of the names that might go there are some top assistants from some of the stuff I've read. Oklahoma defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, Oregon offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead, which I think would be a horrible hire. I mean, he kind of screwed Mississippi State over, if I remember correctly. Fresno State head coach Kalen DeBoer, Nevada head coach Jay Norvell, Washington State acting coach and defensive coordinator Jake Dickert, Texas co-defensive coordinator Jeff Schote, Oregon State offensive coordinator Brian Lindgren, and Texas special teams coordinator Jeff Banks. What does this mean? That one coach and him finding his way out of the program is going to have that ripple effect where it could affect some of the top programs in the country. I mentioned Oklahoma, Oregon. They could lose coordinators there that could affect their programs too. So it's funny how one program, one person can really make a difference across the country. So putting my toe into that there. All right. So don't forget Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Follow him at Clemson Sports with Clemson Sports Talk right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Podcast of the show is up at 5 o'clock today. And don't forget, tomorrow I'm on from 11 to noon and also 3 to 4. I've never done like 2 hours of radio by myself. It's just been the 1 hour thing. So it's either going to be a home run hire or a complete failure. One way or the other. We'll find out tomorrow. Thanks for checking out the rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Someone said I should let Jackpot fill in for me. I would absolutely let Jackpot fill in for me. I'd have to coach him up on the technical end of it, but I think Jackpot would do a heck of a show by himself. I think Jackpot would do an awesome show by himself. I really do. It's hard keeping your keeping things going for an hour at a time, but I think Jackpot could do a show by himself. Really, really could. During football season. I don't know about basketball season. or baseball season, but he could definitely do it during football season. All right, I appreciate you guys. We'll be on the air tonight at 9:30 with our picks for the weekend. Yep. By the way, Georgia will not win this weekend. Write that down. We'll see you guys later on. Thanks a lot.